hi. I didn't see you there. My name's Adley, or maybe you better know me as famous YouTuber A Human. Since you're here, I might as well tell you some stories about my prime. Now, I don't know exactly what my birth was like, but I imagine it'd go a little something like this. My first away from home experience was over the summer of 2013 when I went to Camp Schwader. Obviously, I had been away from home before this, as I am a pretty adventurous fellow. But at Camp Schwader, I was entirely separated from my family, except for my sister, but she was in another group, so we barely saw each other. It was pretty rough for the first week. Probably didn't help that I wore pajamas half of the time and I had one switch that I only really took off to sleep. With me being on and off homesick, but after that, I had a pretty good time. I made some new friends and we've kept in touch.
Hunter, how could you do this to me? We had so much fun at camp, but instead of talking to me, you're just gonna leave me on red. Do you have any idea how much this message haunts me to this very day? You ruined me, Hunter. You've ruined me!
Oh boy. This one's a great showcase of my stubbornness. So last summer, for my birthday, my father took me to Alaska for reasons I'll explain later. We had a great time there, but I really want to focus on one day in particular, when we went hiking up a mountain. Someone had suggested we play 99 bottles of beer on the wall to pass the time. And, being the completely insane person I am, 9,999 bottles of beer on the wall, 9,999 bottles of beer. Take one down, pass it around. Now there are 9,998 bottles of beer. 6,482 bottles of beer on the wall. 604,082 bottles of beer. 927 bottles of beer on the wall. 927 bottles of beer. 1 bottle of beer on the wall. 1 bottle of beer. Take one down, pass it around. Now there are 0 bottles of beer on the wall.
Son, it's been 3 years.
Well, you see, back in 7th grade, for an end-of-the-year project, our social studies teacher Mrs. Rowley had us make a video over one of 4 concepts, with the only one I chose, and coincidentally the only one I remember, being the populist movement in the US, which pushed for less taxes on crops, among other things, to give farmers economic equality with industrial businesses. Anyway, I ended up volunteering to edit the video because I had taken a video editing, and I use the term editing very lightly, class back in 4th grade, so naturally I was the most qualified. It was really only supposed to be me cutting out the takes of the video that failed. Well, what was supposed to be a simple cutting turned into me adding text, music, and filters until I'd produced this masterpiece.
And you, Alex, what's your life story?
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine. You're not really fine, but you just can't get it.
I was actually really proud of it at the time, and my group, along with the rest of my class when we presented it, had a positive reception to it, so I continued making videos for as many school projects as possible. I believe the first thing that other Robinson kids will say about me if asked will probably be along the lines of, "Oh, that's that video guy, right?" Because I managed to find plenty of loopholes to create videos for projects that were probably never meant to be in video form. Alright, so this one may or may not be as exaggerated as my ego is, because it kind of happened 10 years ago. In any case, here's the memory. My religious school has a summertime day camp called Camp Shalom, where kids learn about Jewish culture and history, which they will soon forget in a matter of days after it is over, and go to places like a water park, laser tag arena, or a gymnastics arena. Now, a part of that Jewish culture is the games played like Gaga Ball or Dodgeball, which is the game we happened to be playing on that fateful day. As Camp Shalom was a, well, camp, it needed counselors, most of which were members of the religious school in the first place, which is perfectly fine. However, the one mistake they made was letting the counselors play. So, on this side, we have the campers, right? Ranges from years 2 to 11 having a fun time playing dodgeball. And on this side, we have the counselors, ranged years 13 to 18. The counselors made quick work of my comrades. And soon I was the only one left. I was quickly noticed by one of the older counselors, whom I still refer to this day as Scary Dodgeball Man, and in horror I watched him wind up and release the ball at what seemed to be 90 miles per hour. Suddenly, time slowed down, and I quite literally neoed my head around the ball, threw my hands behind me, and smashed that ball like a freaking spider! I had triumphed. My joy knew no bounds, and as I Just to give you an image of how close it was, the ball was literally covering up my entire sphere of vision, and I heard it whoosh by me as I dodged it. To be honest, I don't really remember how I obtained this piece of advice, but it's helped me to usually find my stance on a topic that I truly believe in, which I feel is an area where most people could improve in. The advice goes a little something like this: put yourself in their shoes. And I don't mean just imagine their circumstances, which is what people do when they hear that phrase. It doesn't really help them at all. What I really mean is take a minute, close your eyes, and really imagine yourself as them, not just what you know about them. After you've gotten into their character, try to make a difficult choice as them. Whatever you decide should let you know how you feel about something. Let's try this out in a real-world scenario. Oh man, the senior prom is coming up and I still haven't gotten the courage to ask out my crush Darnell. I just don't want to be rejected.
No, let's apply what we've learned to this situation.
Okay, I am Darnell.
Oh, Adley, of course I'll go to the prom with you. You're so smart and funny and handsome and the best guy ever.
Oh man, she likes me. Let's go and ask. Hey, Darnell, listen. I have to confess something. I've been crushing on you since the 8th grade, and I can't just keep stewing. Darnell, will you go to prom with me? Well, this one is pretty easy. Back in 5th grade, my mom and brother were diagnosed with celiac, which basically means gluten, a substance found in most grains, was deadly to their gut. My dad, sister, and I also had a high gluten sensitivity, so we went from being able to eat gluten to eating nothing in the span of a week. As you can imagine, it was pretty hard for the first year. I mean, how could I live without the sweet taste of gluten? How could I go on without seeing the Actually, after the first year, we discovered the power of gluten substitute. So now we can pretty much eat whatever we want and all is well in the world. I guess I've been pretty lucky and I haven't had to make many truly hard decisions during my life, but one of the few that stands out is probably my decision to go into IB, mainly because I won't really know if it paid off before it's too late to change anything, but so far I'm glad I went into IB rather than going to East for the normal curriculum. This anxiety happens to me whenever I'm going to try something new, where my version of what the new thing will be is always over-exaggerated and portrayed in a bad light, when in reality, IB included, it's not nearly as bad. Ironically, this trait probably makes hard things seem way easier because of how much I hyperbolize things. Our story starts with 5th grade Adley, who was going into Robinson the next year. I'll be the first to admit it, I was definitely out of shape as a child. As for now, I am at least pretty happy with my body, but my 12-pack didn't just appear out of nowhere. In 5th grade, my friend Nick Graybon was going to a personal trainer, and he asked me if I wanted to work out with him. Being the socially insecure person I am, I naturally said yes, even though I really did not want to. Fast forward to now, and I still work out with a trainer who is named Rob. I am extremely glad that I continue to work out because it improved my self-image a lot, and I am much healthier in general. Well, there was this one time in 6th grade where I had no friends. I know, it seems impossible for a stud like me, but it's true. Anyways, one of the classes I was required to take is 1 semester of art, so I ended up taking it my first year. In that class was Varun Verma, who also happens to go to East currently. I sat nearby him and I would listen to his conversations with his friends instead of paying attention to the art. One day he noticed me and invited me to talk with him and his friends. The only other person I knew at this school was Nick, who had gone to my elementary school, so this was a big deal to me. Later, he would invite me to put videos on a group YouTube channel he owned, although I had not tried to learn how to edit yet. Thankfully, the channel, famously known as the Gamer Bros, yeah, we were pretty hardcore, has been repurposed and now does not make videos that make my spine want to crawl out of my back. In 8th grade, the East Debate and Forensics team came to Robinson to do a showcase, and it convinced me to join the debate team for this year, which I am really glad I did because I feel like it improved my speaking skills by a noticeable amount. Obviously, if they improved, then they had to suck at the beginning of the year, so I was extremely nervous for my first tournament at El Dorado. My one respite was that I had a partner, Kier Bishop, who was my friend, so I didn't feel alone. Finally, it was time for our first round and my nerves were wrecked. I just knew that I was going to mess it up terribly. Both teams had their first speeches, and after that there is cross-examination, or cross-ex, where both teams can ask questions to the other team to set up new arguments in their next speech or directly argue in cross-ex, since it would be completely unscripted. This is the unedited footage of what happened. Why would you argue, topicality when you have arguments specifically made for our case? We didn't argue topicality, actually. Oh, okay. We forfeit. Needless to say, after that, we felt much better about going to debate tournaments. There was a pretty dark time for me when my English teacher, Mr. Ortiz, assigned this book for us to annotate called The Odyssey, which I'm sure none of you have any experience with. Now, whether or not it was my fault is not for me to say, but I ended up staying up way late almost every day in order to get it done on time, and naturally when I came home from school I was pretty tired. This feeling really sucked because my family would always try to talk to me and I would just make grunts and replies, so in time they just kind of left me alone and let me be tired. Now we have finished the Odyssey, so now I can communicate like a human being to my family again, which is always pretty nice. So, remember the Alaska trip I was talking about earlier? Well, the purpose of it was to see my best friend who had moved to Alaska in the summer of 2015. Although we had talked a lot, we hadn't seen each other since then, so naturally I was pretty excited. I was expecting him to look different because of the time gap, but still when I got to the airport I did a double take because he looked much more mature. I hoped I did too. We had a great time there, and it gave me some really good memories that I hold very dearly. One day, when I was working on the Odyssey, my dad's iPad chimed to say that I should rediscover whatever day it was that day. I was a little confused, but went to it nonetheless. On the iPad was the collection of pictures and videos my dad had taken during that trip, and I spent a good hour just staring at the pictures from it, which may or may not have contributed to me staying up way too late, but I don't want to hear logic right now, okay? Just shut up. Shut up. From the start, my dad's always been my greatest mentor, and I hope to be like him when I grow up. He always works so hard and does so much more than he needs to, and has an incredible patience level. Every day he gets up at 5 in the morning to go work out before he goes to work, and then he works until 7 p.m. every day. He is also very hands-on and has shown me how to do many things around the house, like unclogging a shower or sink or mowing the lawn. Although I don't envy his job as a risk manager, I hope I can have a stable job like his when I grow up. Currently, I want to get into dermatology, which will definitely test my patience with the whole process, taking an average of 14 years. But I feel if I can get through that, then I will be one step closer to live up to my father's legacy. During Thanksgiving break, I got sick, which was my excuse to not do my homework. I was planning to do it on the last day, and I did, except for one sneaky assignment that I always forget about, Grammar 101 units. So I emailed Mr. Ortiz asking him for an extension, and he declined, which totally made sense, seeing as how I had 3 weeks to complete it and didn't make a single percentage point of progress on it for those entire 3 weeks. The bigger problem, though, was that we have tests for the grammar unit the week it is due, and since I hadn't done any of it, I couldn't see the material to study for it. I went into the test completely blind and essentially guessed on all of it. You can imagine my surprise when I see I got an 88 on it. The lesson I learned is that it's totally okay to not do homework, that doing homework saves you an unnecessary amount of stress. During 7th and 8th grade, my friend Nick and I had a falling out. I think due to our lack of common interests and most of our discussions being about politics. And I say politics loosely because it was basically Trump bad, Clinton good. No. Clinton bad, Trump good. No. No. The point was, we weren't having fun together, so we gradually drifted apart. Over the summer of 7th grade, I had my bar mitzvah, which is similar to a quinceañera, except it's for boys and requires you to study for 2 years before you can go through it, because a bar mitzvah is you leading the entire congregation in 2 services, one on Friday and one on Saturday. Score 1 for Judaism teaching good work ethic. Anyway, at the dinner table before the Friday service, Nick sat at my table, and we actually hit it off again with a conversation. We ended up leaving on good terms, and I didn't see him again until school started. However, by then, it was just awkward to see him, so I didn't really make an attempt to talk to him again. We still talk to each other, but only if we see each other at school and in small exchanges. If I was more courageous, I would attempt to settle our differences and try to make it less awkward when we see each other in the halls. I know many people will probably have some pretty specific things that they want to be remembered by, but as long as I'm remembered for something positive, I'll be happy. I hope if I become a dermatologist, I can make a name for myself and be known in the medical community. Right now, though, my friend from the future here has offered to take me to my funeral, which isn't creepy and morally dilemmic at all. Why do we live? Why do we strive? Contend. Persevere. Spending our most precious resource, our time. I believe it's for the moments, the moment when it all comes together, when every shot finds its mark, when your heart's beating out of your chest, your mind clears, and your body acts. Your instincts take over. When you make your own luck, and your enemies fall, when you become your own legend. Adley Solomon certainly has made his own legend today, but that's not how he would have wanted to be known. To his family and friends, he was that one video guy.
Oh god damn.
Here we go.